Welcome to another episode of Crime Scene X. In today's episode, we will be covering 3 disturbing birthday horror stories. Sit back and enjoy. The anticipation of my 10th birthday had me on the edge of excitement for weeks. Double digits. It was a big deal, and I'd been planning my party with a fervor that only a soon-to-be 10-year-old could muster. Mom and Dad had agreed to a special cops and robbers game when the sun set, and I'd invited all my friends, including my best friend Jamie. Jamie and I were inseparable. We did everything together, from exploring the woods behind our houses to building incredible forts. We'd even started planning the game's rules for the party, ensuring that it would be the most exciting game of cops and robbers ever. The day finally arrived, filled with the joyful chaos that only a horde of elementary school kids could create. My house was decorated with streamers, and a giant cake was waiting to be devoured. Laughter and shouts filled the air as everyone played games, ate food, and impatiently waited for the sun to go down. When the first hints of dusk finally appeared, Jamie and I gathered everyone together and explained the rules. We'd be the robbers, and the rest of the kids would be the cops. We had walkie-talkies, flashlights, and even some cool bandanas to complete our robber look. The woods behind our house were the chosen playground, filled with hidden paths, towering trees, and plenty of places to hide. The game began with excited yells as Jamie and I dashed into the woods, the cops hot on our heels. The air was filled with the intoxicating scent of adventure, the thrill of the chase, and the laughter of childhood innocence. We dodged between trees, crawled through bushes, and used every trick we'd learned during our many explorations. Time flew by as we played, the woods becoming darker and more mysterious as the sun set. The game was everything we'd hoped for, a glorious adventure that had us all fully engrossed. But then, something changed. Jamie and I had found a particularly good hiding spot, and we were lying in wait, planning our next move. We'd been there for a while, listening to the sounds of our friends searching for us, their voices growing distant. I decided to check the walkie-talkie, but it was strangely silent. The other kids seemed to have moved far away, and an eerie quiet settled over our hiding spot. "Let's move," I whispered to Jamie, but he was looking at something in the distance, his face pale. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to a faint glow through the trees. I strained my eyes but couldn't make it out. "Probably someone's house," I said, but uncertainty gnawed at me. Jamie seemed transfixed, and I had to shake him to get his attention. "Come on, let's go," I urged, but he was hesitant. "There's something weird about that light," he said, his voice quivering. I tried to laugh it off, telling him it was just the dark playing tricks on us, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled over me. With a final glance at the mysterious glow, we moved on, putting it out of our minds as the game resumed. The night wore on, and eventually Mom called us back to the house, the game ending with laughter and tales of narrow escapes and daring captures. But as we gathered around the fire pit for marshmallows and stories, I realized that something was wrong. "Where's Jamie?" I asked, looking around. No one had seen him since the game, and a knot of fear tightened in my stomach. We searched the yard, called his name, and checked the woods, but he was nowhere to be found. Panic set in, and my parents called the police. The following hours were a blur, filled with fear, tears, and the harsh glare of police lights. The entire neighborhood was searched, but there was no sign of Jamie. Days turned into weeks, then months. The search continued, but hope was fading. My best friend, my partner in crime, had vanished without a trace. And then, one cold and dreary day, a hiker stumbled upon something in the woods, something that would bring a tragic end to the mystery and change our lives forever. The discovery was made far from where we'd played that fateful night, in a part of the woods that was dense and rarely explored. The hiker had been looking for a shortcut when he stumbled upon a gruesome scene that he would never forget. It was Jamie. My best friend, who had laughed and played with me on my 10th birthday, had been found lifeless in the cold embrace of the forest. The news hit our small community like a shockwave, and for me, it was a nightmare come to life. The police launched a full investigation, trying to piece together what had happened. I was questioned multiple times, reliving that night over and over, trying to recall any detail that might help them. The mysterious glow that Jamie had seen haunted my thoughts. Could it have been a sign? A clue to what had happened? The police searched the area, but they found nothing that could explain it. Days turned into weeks as the investigators worked tirelessly to solve the mystery. Our town was gripped by fear and sorrow, parents holding their children closer, friends and neighbors looking at each other with suspicion. I couldn't escape the weight of guilt that hung over me. Had I missed something? Could I have done something to prevent Jamie's fate? Sleep became elusive, filled with nightmares of that night. Jamie's face, pale and fearful, forever etched in my mind. My parents tried to help, offering support and love, but they were struggling too. They had lost a child they'd known and loved, and their hearts were heavy with grief. Our school held a memorial for Jamie, and our classmates gathered to remember him, sharing stories and memories, trying to make sense of the senseless. We planted a tree in his honor, but it felt like such a small gesture in the face of such a profound loss. The police continued their investigation, but answers were elusive. There were no witnesses, no evidence, nothing that could lead them to whoever had taken Jamie's life. The case grew cold, the urgency of those first few days and weeks fading into a grim determination to find justice. Months passed, and the initial shock turned into a dull ache, a constant reminder of what had been lost. Our town tried to move on, but the shadow of that night lingered, a wound that never quite healed. I continued to struggle, my once bright and adventurous spirit dimmed by grief and fear. I avoided the woods, unable to face the memories they held, the joy and excitement of exploration replaced by a terror I couldn't shake. The police never gave up, but the trail had gone cold. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to find the person responsible for Jamie's death. Then one day, a break in the case. A man was arrested in a neighboring town on unrelated charges, and during the investigation, something in his possession caught the eye of a sharp-eyed detective. It was a bandana, one that matched the description of the ones Jamie and I had worn on the night of my birthday. The discovery led to a search of the man's property, uncovering evidence that tied him to Jamie's murder. The mysterious glow we'd seen that night was finally explained. It was a lantern in the man's hidden cabin, a place where he had lived in seclusion and secrecy. The trial was a media frenzy, our small town thrust into the spotlight as the details of Jamie's final moments were laid bare. The man was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, but the verdict brought little comfort. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring Jamie back. It couldn't erase the memories or heal the wounds. In memory of Jamie, my best friend, my partner in crime, and a part of my soul that will never be replaced. The excitement in the air was palpable as my friends Hannah, Olivia, Emily, and I embarked on our weekend getaway. It was Emily's 21st birthday, and what better way to celebrate than by renting an Airbnb, hitting the local clubs, and enjoying some well-deserved time away from the demands of everyday life. The Airbnb we'd found online looked perfect. A spacious, contemporary home with an open floor plan, chic decor, and all the modern conveniences one could ask for. Its location was ideal as well, nestled on a quiet street less than a mile away from the heart of the city's nightlife. We arrived on Friday afternoon, our luggage packed with party dresses, makeup, and of course a couple of bottles of champagne to kick things off. We were greeted by a gentle floral fragrance as we stepped into the house, a nice touch I assumed was from an air freshener or scented candles. The weekend started off wonderfully. The first night was a blast, filled with laughter, dancing, and plenty of toasts to Emily's special day. Memories were being made, and we felt blessed to have each other. Saturday night brought even more fun, with the girls looking forward to another night on the town. But before heading out, we took turns primping in the bathroom. It was Hannah's turn to shower, and as she lathered her hair with a sweet-smelling shampoo, she noticed something peculiar. A red dot, no bigger than the tip of a pin, caught her eye on the silver surface of the shower head. She blinked, and it was gone. She shrugged it off, attributing it to a trick of the light or maybe even her imagination. After all, she'd had a few drinks, and the night was still young. But as she reached to plug in her hairdryer, she noticed something else. The first outlet didn't work, so she tried another, and as she did, she spotted that same red dot, hidden in the shadows. Her heart skipped a beat. She called us, and we examined the plug, the dot unmistakable now that we knew where to look. It didn't take us long to piece together the horrifying truth. There were hidden cameras in the Airbnb. Panicking and unsure what to do, we contacted Airbnb, who advised us to reach out to the owner. We sent a message, demanding an explanation. The response was swift and unsettling. The owner denied any knowledge of the cameras, but became increasingly defensive, even threatening. We realized that we were not dealing with a simple misunderstanding, but something far more sinister. We decided to leave the Airbnb and go to a hotel. It was no longer a celebration. It was a nightmare. We managed to leave the Airbnb, but the terror didn't end there. The owner continued to contact us, his messages growing more deranged and frightening. We reported the incident to the police, but there was little they could do without concrete evidence. The experience left our sense of safety violated. And the Airbnb owner? He was never found, his identity hidden behind a web of lies and deceit. The house was taken off the platform, but who knows how many other places he might have, how many other innocent victims he might prey upon. We vowed never to speak of that weekend again, to try to put it behind us and move on. Turning 16 was a milestone I'd looked forward to all my life. Mom and Dad promised a party like no other, and I invited all my closest friends. Little did I know that my special day would turn into a horrifying experience. The day began with games, music, and laughter. Everyone was in high spirits, and we were all excited for the evening's highlight, a scavenger hunt in the nearby woods. Ryan, my best friend since childhood, had spent weeks preparing the clues and hiding them throughout the forest. He was known for his love of pranks and riddles, and this year, he promised something bigger and more exciting than ever. We gathered around the edge of the woods as Ryan explained the rules. He handed out flashlights and maps, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Soon we were off, racing each other to find the hidden treasures and solve the cryptic clues. The forest was filled with our laughter and playful banter as we made our way deeper into the trees. But as the sun began to sink below the horizon, a thick fog rolled in, turning the once familiar woods into a disorienting maze. The clues that had once seemed fun and challenging now appeared vague and sinister. We were losing our way. The first sign of real danger came with a rustling in the bushes, followed by an ominous howl that sent a shiver through the group. We tried to laugh it off, but the once playful atmosphere had shifted into something more ominous. As darkness fell, we stumbled upon an old, decrepit cabin. Ryan swore he didn't put it on the map, and its rotting wood and broken windows seemed to suggest a haunting past. It was then that we saw him, a tall, thin man with wild eyes, standing at the edge of the clearing. He was watching us, his gaze cold and unblinking. Panic set in. We grabbed each other, uncertain whether to approach him or run. Ryan called out, asking if he needed help, but the man said nothing. He just stood there watching, a twisted smile playing on his lips. We turned to leave, but the man began to follow us, slowly at first, then picking up his pace. We started to run, our hearts pounding, the man's footsteps growing louder. The once familiar woods now seemed like a terrifying labyrinth, full of hidden dangers. The man was relentless. His presence felt even when we couldn't see him. We could hear his ragged breathing, his twisted laughter as he drew closer. Hours passed as we ran, tripping over roots, scraping our hands and knees, losing our way. The clues were forgotten, and the only goal was to escape the man's relentless pursuit. Finally, we reached a road, flagging down a passing car. The driver was shocked to see a group of terrified teenagers, but quickly drove us back to safety. The police were called, and a search of the woods was conducted, but the man was never found. The old cabin was empty, filled with the remnants of a long-forgotten life. They could find no trace of our pursuer. My 16th birthday will forever be etched in my memory, not as a joyful celebration, but as a night of terror. The woods that once held the promise of adventure and fun now hold only shadows and fear. The woods remain, silent and watchful, hiding their secrets. And though we never saw the creepy man again, the memory of his twisted smile and cold eyes haunts us still. We moved on, but something changed in all of us that night. A loss of innocence, a realization that danger could lurk around any corner. My birthday party was indeed unforgettable, but for all the wrong reasons. It was a lesson in trust, fear, and the unknown. A lesson that will stay with us forever, hidden in the shadows of a once beloved forest.